Introduction to HTML Tables. Learn core HTML table concepts and structure for beginners. HTML table tag is used to display data in tabular form. There can be many columns in a row. We can create a table to display data in tabular form using table element with the help of two dir elements. In each table, table row is defined by tag, table header is defined by, and table is defined by. HTML tables are used to manage the layout of the page, e.g. header section, navigation bar, body content, footer section, etc. Some of HTML table tags. HTML tags are the building blocks of web pages. They define the structure and content of an HTML document. Opening tag. Some tags are self-closing. Heading tags H1 to H6 represent headings. H1 is the largest, is the smallest. Break tag inserts a line break without creating a new paragraph. Formatting tags examples include B, bold, I, italic, U, underline, mark, highlight. List tags ordered list with E an unordered list. Div and span. Block level container for grouping elements. Span. Inline container for styling parts of text. Input types. HTML provides many input types: text, password, radio, checkbox, email, number, etc. Meta tags placed inside, used for metadata like character set and page description. Script and style tag. Script embeds JavaScript style. CSS. Semantic tags. HTML5 introduced meaningful tags. Ladder. Footer article. Section. Aside. HTML tables overview. Table defines the table container, creates table rows, table header cells, table data cells, simple table example structure. Table tag wraps all. Rows define. Headers with data inside. Usage display tabular data, clearly semantic and accessible format. Create a table. The table tag creates a table with a border defined by border x1. Inside the table, a row is added to define the headers for name and age. Add data to the table. Another row is created to add data with tags for the values John and 25, representing the name and age of a person. Table attributes. In HTML, border sets table borders, thickness, height, and width control table dimensions. Cell padding and cell spacing adjust padding inside cells and spacing between cells. Table attributes in HTML adds a border, cell spacing, space between cells. Padding, space inside a cell. Width and height defines dimensions. HTML border attribute. We can use border attribute of table tag in HTML to specify border, but it is not recommended these days. Syntax. Table border equals cell padding and cell spacing attributes. There are two attributes called cell padding and cell spacing, which we can use to adjust the white space in your table cells. The cell spacing attribute defines space between table cells, while cell padding represents the distance between cell borders and the content within a cell. Table dir one cell padding x5 cell spacing x5. Table height and width. We can set a table width and height using width and height attributes. We can specify table width or height in terms of pixels or in terms of percentage of available screen area. Syntax. Table border equals 1 equals 400, height equals 150, HTML table with col span. If we want to make a cell span of more than one column, we can use the col span attribute. It will divide one cell row into multiple columns, and the number of columns depend on the value of col span attribute. Col span to merged columns. HTML table with row span. If we want to make a cell span of more than one row, we can use the row span attribute. It will divide a cell into multiple rows. The number of divided rows will depend on row span values. Table structure and attributes. The table creates a table with a border of 1 pixel, a cell spacing of 5 pixels, and padding of 10 pixels within each cell. The Wicus 50 attribute sets the table width to 50% of its container. The first row contains 3 header cells for name, age, and city, table data, and merged row. 2 more rows are added where the second row contains data for John, 25, and New York in tags. Table structure and attributes. The table tag creates a table with a border of 1 pixel, cell padding and spacing of 5 pixels, and a fixed width and height. The first row contains 3 header cells for column 1, column 2, and column 3. Using row span and col span, the first data row contains a cell with row span equals 2, meaning it spans across 2 rows. The second row has 2 regular cells for row 2 cell 2 and row 2 cell 3. The third row contains a cell with col span equals 3, which spans across all 3 columns, displaying row 3 cell 1 in one large cell that occupies the full width of the table. Using col-span attribute, col-span allows a cell to span multiple columns. 1. Merges adjacent cells horizontally. 2. Useful for headers or combined data. 3. Syntax decol-span's number. Using rows attribute rowspan enables a cell to span multiple rows vertically. HTML table structure. Tag starts the table. All rows and columns go inside this tag. Tag stands for table row. Each row of the table is written inside a T. Tag stands for table header. It creates bold and centered heading cells. Tag stands for table data. It holds the actual data in each cell of the table. Table border. To make borders visible, use border x1 inside the table tag. Row structure. Each row contains cells side by side within one tag. Columns are vertical. Each author in the same position across rows creates a column. Multiple rows. You can add more rows by repeating that tag with the necessary T cells inside. Basic table structure, summary table, start and end table. Table header row contains cells, body rows contain cells, attributes enhance layout and spacing, creating a simple calendar table. Use table grid to visualize calendar days. Rows represent weeks, columns represent weekdays, combine cells, use col-span, row span for special events. Simple calendar. A calendar in HTML is a visual grid layout that displays the days of a month, often arranged by weeks. It is static when created only with HTML. Purpose of using HTML to design a calendar. To visually organize dates for event scheduling on websites. To demonstrate basics of HTML tables. Easy to create for projects or presentations. HTML table layout. The calendar is built using the table element. Rows and columns. Each row represents a week. Each column represents a day. Weekday headers. Use for day names empty cells. Add empty T cells for days that fall before the first of the month starts. Numbering the days. Add T elements with numbers to represent calendar days. The above HTML code creates a simple calendar for March 2025. The H2 tag displays the month March 2025 at the top of the page. The table tag creates the calendar table with a border, no cell spacing, and 3 cell padding of 5 pixels. The first row defines the days of the week with tags for sun, mon, tu, wed, tu, fran, sat. Each subsequent row represents a week of the month with tags for each day. The empty tags are used to create blank spaces for days of the previous month or after the last day. The calendar ends with the last row for the 26th to 31st, leaving an empty cell for the last Sunday.